Beautiful to the Incoming Papers Challenge, where we are talking about the action file this week. So, for today and 2 more days, so 3 days total, we will be talking about how you can build for free your own action file with stuff you probably already have at home. If not, it's like a simple office supply store or Amazon trip. So, let's do this. Now, this is day 1, like I mentioned. So, today I wanted to talk about the overview of what is your action file? Why is it called an action file? How does it work? And I wanted to go into how to use the folders that are in the action file, including how to customize the folders so your action file can be very unique to you and work how you need it to work. Because if you have a system that you really can't change it around, then a lot of times it won't work for everyone. You need to tweak things to work for you and your life. So that's what we are talking about today. So as you hop on, let me know who you are, where you're joining me from, and I asked a question in the chat area. I asked, what color, if you have your action file set up already, or if you grabbed your supplies but haven't set it up, what color is your action file? I always like to hear what different people choose. So I see in the chat area that Kimberly, she says she ordered a twin pack of black mesh file holders, one for the action file and one for the medical file. Folders are purple for action file and red for medical. That's fantastic. I love that. Mariana, also black for her action file. And Denise it's black, but she says, I'm going to change it because the size and structure isn't working. Yeah. And that's the big thing. You want to make sure that it's working. So try out what you think will work, and then feel free after you've tried it out to adjust and make it your own. But it really helps to just try out something that you think will work first. Try out the system first, try out whatever you think will work best for you, and then adjust from there. So good one. Great, Denise. So we have, let's see, Karen says pink. Melissa, her folders are green, red, orange, yellow, blue. She's got the rainbow. Hi, Brenda. Brenda's is red. And so is Eloise. Melissa's here from Florida. Hi, Melissa. And Karen's from Virginia. Welcome, Nancy. Let's see. Joy says from Virginia, mine is brown and black cardboard box that coffee pods came in. That is perfect. Yes, if you don't have a store-bought box that will be perfect for what you need, make it. It's great to do something that's just temporary until you can get what you like, or sometimes, hey, just keep it that way, right? You can always cover it in wrapping paper or contact paper or something if you wanted to. I love that. Sherry's is clear lucite with red and white folders. And Neva, I hope I'm saying that right. Is it Neva? From Virginia, she says hers is black mesh. Eloise is from Honduras by way of Texas City with lots of love, she says. Hi, Lori. She says she has 2 black action files, one upstairs, one downstairs. On Facebook, opaque, but I have a lid that snaps on. That's great because then you can take the lid off for your regular routines. I love it. Hi, lovely Marie. Blessings to all. She says she has this second color for medical info, and she's here from Alaska. Judy says bright orange and black, and lovely Marie says hers are pink. Sandy, multiple colors for the folders and gold for the storage. And Kathleen from Houston says blue folders and clear lucite file holder. I love the wide array of styles we've got here. That's so much fun. Super cool. All right, well, let's dive in to, okay, what is the action file? If you don't have one set up yet, that's okay. That's what this is for, right? And if you've not already registered for the challenge, make sure to do so, because that way you can get the 3 days of emails and all of the extra information that I share by the email. So there's a lot more that happens in the emails as well. So make sure that you join it. So SuzannaKaye.live/join-the-challenge, and you can get registered. And tomorrow I'm sharing an extra bonus download in your email. So just for those who are registered, definitely worth it. Okay. What is an action file for anybody who's not heard yet? What an action file is, I am here for you with that one. So an action file is one place where you can put all of your incoming mail and your active to-do papers, your incoming papers. So everything that comes into the house that's paper, and everything that is active. something that you still need to do something with that's paper, can go in your action file. And this one's mine. This is my example action file. So I have my favorite container. Mine is this kind of a rose gold sort of container. It's on the verge of just gold. It's like not a super rose gold, I think. Maybe it is gold. I don't know. I don't remember. I've had it for so long and I absolutely love it. And then these are my file folders. Now you'll notice there are not a lot of file folders. That's because the action file is a bit different from what you're probably used to. So the action file, the purpose of the action file is not to hold your papers forever, right? This is not your archive papers where you're going to keep papers in here permanently. This is temporary storage for papers that come in or papers that have an active to do, right? And the way that it's set up, the great thing about it is there's only one folder that you ever need to remember to check on a regular basis. Just one. The rest of the folders, nothing bad should happen within those. It's when you get around to it, when you have time, when it gets full. And we'll talk later on this week about how to make sure that you can maintain it and keep an eye on it. If you're out of sight, out of mind person, don't worry. This works for you too, because that's how I am as well. I've got tricks for that. But only one folder that you need to check. And once all the actions are finished with that paper, after it comes in, after you've done whatever you need to do with it, then the paper flows out of your action file. So once it's done, it can either get filed in your archive files. So it flows right into your paper path filing system or whatever filing system you're using, or discarded, recycle, shred, however you dispose of it. So those are the two ways out of the action file. Until then, it can move around in your action file and you know exactly where it is and you will never lose it or forget it that way. So like I said, it can flow directly into your full paper path system. That's the system that I talk about, that I teach in the course and that so many of you are using and loving, is that paper path system. That's what I teach in the paper path course, if you're familiar with hearing me talk about the paper path course. So you can use this very easily. It's actually the first step of the course, is setting this up. All right, so that's a general overview of the action file, what makes it a little bit different. The key difference, though, are the folders. Like I said, you see how there are so few folders? This is not like the normal filing system where each folder has papers by what type of paper it is. Instead, it's called the action file because each folder tells you what the next action is for the paper. It does not matter what type of paper it is, whether it's a bank statement or it's your kids' what is it called? Field trip response form, doesn't matter. What is the next action for that paper? And it makes it so much easier to deal with your papers because you know exactly what you need to do next with it. And everything that has a similar type of action due next is already grouped together. So that's why it's called the action file, because what is the next action that needs to be taken with that paper? So let's go over some of the folders within your action file. All right. The core folders, the main folders that usually I have people start out with and try before trying to do too many custom folders or adjusting. These core folders are to enter. So to enter, this is a folder that, and I'll go much more in depth into like how to use the folders throughout the week as well. So this is not your only chance to hear it, but to enter would be if the paper just has information that needs to be entered somewhere else. So that an example would be like a business card, or if you have something with contact information, maybe it's a paper that you need to enter the information into your Spark Life binder or your emergency medical folder before you file it. The only thing that you need from that paper is just to enter the information that's on the paper somewhere else. So that's to enter, and that's how you would think about, okay, do I have to just enter information somewhere else? Is that the only stuff that I've got left for it, or the next step? To enter. So after to enter, sorry, we've got puppy who wants attention, is to read. So the to read folder means that the next step with that paper is to read it, and just to read it. You don't know if there are any further steps that are needed. All you know is the next step with that paper is to read through it or skim through it, look it over. So an example would be maybe you have an insurance policy that came in and you just want to eyeball it before it gets filed, make sure that there aren't any big changes that you don't agree with it, that you're questioning. So your next step would be to read it because you want to see, is there anything here that I need to address or know about? And the nice thing is, if there is something else that needs to be done, once you've read it, that paper can move into a different folder for what the next action is. If there isn't, then it can get filed or discarded, however you handle that type of paper. But it's just the next action. We don't care about any actions after the next one. It's just what's the next one. So if you do scan your papers, then you can add the to scan folder. And if you don't scan your papers, that's okay. You can skip this one. But to scan is really helpful because that way you don't have to scan things as they come in and do one off. You can every once in a while just grab the folder, scan a bunch of papers. Usually that means you're done with all of the other actions. Before you file it, you just want to scan it. And then there's to file. So to file means you're done with all the actions that need to be done. The only thing left to do is to file it because you have to keep the paper. Now, if you don't have to keep the paper, then you could skip the to file folder and shred it, recycle it, whatever you need to do. But if you do need to keep the paper, you could just put it into file. That way you don't have to run over to your file cabinet constantly and file one piece of paper at a time. Every once in a while, you can grab your to file folder and bring it over to your file cabinet and just do a bunch of your filing all at once. Much more efficient and much less likely to have those papers kind of float around and get in the way of seeing what you really need to do, right? Now you'll notice I did skip one of the papers or one of the folders, didn't I? That's because this is the heart of your action file. It's your to-do folder. Now, the reason I'm doing this last is because your to-do folder means it has an action that is not included in any of the other folders. So there's a different action that's needed. Because if we tried to do one folder for every action we could possibly have to do with the paper, then it's going to be a very large file, and that will make it less efficient. But if we have a to-do folder for everything that does not fit in one of those other actions, then that is going to help you keep that separate, make sure that nothing gets lost, make sure you don't forget it. So some examples of things that might go in your to-do folder, maybe there's an RSVP that you have to send back, or maybe there's something you need to order and you pull out that page from the catalog and you just stick it in my to-do so that you can order it later. So it could be a random set of actions, and that is okay because we have ways to make sure that our out of sight, out of minders, you don't forget anything and that you can get through your to-do folder. Okay. But that is the to-do folder. And that is the only folder that you need to check on a regular basis would be your to-do folder. The other ones, if they don't get done quickly, they're probably not going to start any fires. You know where to find the paper. If it's not in your filing cabinet, it's right here. So it keeps it nice and neat for you. And that way it makes it the filing cabinet the way it should. So those are your core folders. Now, in addition to your core folders, you can add a few, very few custom folders. Now, the deal with adding custom folders is you want to make sure that each of these custom folders is an action. So it needs to be an action-based label on the folder in general. There are a few, and I go through this in the Paper Path course and in some of the other resources that I share. There are a few instances where it might not be an action-based, but in general, most of the time it's going to be action-based. So what is the next action you need to take? Can you write the word to in front of it and it still makes sense? You know, to call, to follow up. So I'll give you some examples of those custom folders. Now I'll do that in just a second. I want to go over to the comments really quickly. And if you have any questions as we go along, please ask them in the comments and I will make sure to answer those. So let me move this down really quickly. All right. So in the comments, let's see. We have Melanie is here. Hi, Melanie. She's got black plastic for her action file. And Arnett is here from Hawaii. Welcome. Aloha. Brenda is here. Hers are manila, orange, blue, and red. And Joanne, oh no, Joanne has to get, she's touching up her action file this week. Fell off the wagon. She says, unfortunately, I've had papers in mind for 2 years. I have to get working on it. Well, that is not a problem, Joanne, because during our group hikes and during some of those office hours sessions are a really good time to just go through a couple of those folders or whenever you have extra time. But this week, make sure to join me for day 3. We're going to talk about how to maintain it and not forget those papers in there. But at least if you've had them in there for 2 years, they aren't the super urgent ones. But we'll get you going again. Karen, thank you. She says, your fun-loving personality is contagious. Thanks so much. Beverly, hi. She says, from Memphis is on. Sharon says, hi from New Jersey. My action file is a repurposed straw beach bag that's just the right size, and her folders are multicolored. Ooh, that's so fun. Oh, I love that. And Kimberly says, hi, cute puppy. Thank you. She's an attention hog. She always likes to be up when I'm live. Rosella's here. She says, hello from New York, listening to this live chat again because I always love to review and update for myself information for the paper path system. Fantastic. Good. I'm glad you're here. Hi, Diane. Good to have you. And Lori. Good question. I will answer your question in just a minute as I talk about some of the custom folders, and I will get to that question as well. That's a really good one. So you'll hear Lori's question in a minute. Lovely Marie says, I found putting the same papers like banking, medical information in the same pile, so all I have to do is one-time file and move on instead of going to that same folder multiple times. Absolutely. So in your to-file folder, there are definitely some tricks that I share like that within the Paper Path course that make filing just a lot faster. And that is one of the tricks, to kind of go through and put like with like really quickly before you get to that file cabinet. So good one. Millie says, one of my additional folders is upcoming pet sits. Yes, as a pet sitter, that's a really good one to have at the tip of your fingers. I'm a pet sitter as my job and keep folders of my clients. So during my weekly planning, I pull files for the pet sits for that week. Awesome. Yeah, during her membership, we do. With the Path membership, we do week planning sessions. So that's a great thing to pull out during those times. Jenny says, I also fell off the wagon, but persevering. I'm glad you're here. And yep, lovely Marie. Yes, I'm a Pathfinder member as well. Yes, you are. We love having you. We see you in our different group hikes and stuff all the time. That makes me happy. Hi, Karen. She says, I use slash pockets with like items. I'm probably reading that wrong. Turn them backwards when they're pending. Oh, that's a good idea. I like that. So if it's pending, then it's backwards. But if it's active, it's in the front. That's really cool. Good ideas. Love it. All right. So let's go through some of the custom folders again. Then I'm going to pop back to Lori's question because it'll be a good example of how to make that decision of where something would go. All right. So when we talk about customizing your action file folders, in your action file, the goal for your action file is to always have 10 folders or fewer. The fewer folders, the better. Because when your brain has a lot to choose from, more than 10 choices, sometimes for some of us, it's more than 5 choices. But when it's got a lot of choices to make, then your brain has to engage more. It really has to kick in and think a lot harder, which makes the job harder, which makes us procrastinate a whole lot more, right? So if we can simplify our choices, then our brain does not have to kick in very hard, and it can make quick decisions without using a lot of energy, and we're less likely to procrastinate as well. So an example is if you go to, if you've ever been to the Cheesecake Factory, which is a restaurant, it's got great cheesecake, good food, but their menu is like this big. It's a book. It's literally a spiral bound book. So you have so many choices that a lot of times, myself and a lot of people that I've been with, I've seen this happen. You end up just picking something that you've had before or just settling on something because your brain gets overwhelmed and it starts to become work to figure out what you want because there are too many options. Well, if you go somewhere like Chick-fil-A, right, they have like 4 choices. Do you want a chicken sandwich, chicken nuggets, chicken wrap, or chicken salad? And it's a whole lot easier because it's 4 choices. Which of those 4 do you want? So your brain decides very quickly, doesn't it? And you don't feel like it used a lot of energy. So it's the same deal with your action file. If you have 10 or fewer folders in your action file, then your brain does not have to work as hard. So it's going to be very easy to get your papers into the system versus putting them in files. All right. So when we think about our custom folders, we don't want to add too many. And we don't want to add a lot of custom folders that are similar to another action, because then it gets confusing. If it's to recycle and then it's to dispose of, then all of a sudden your brain thinks, okay, well, which one does it go in? Those are very similar. But if they're very different, to enter is very different from to read or to shred, then that is a whole lot easier for your brain to choose between. So keeping those in mind, 10 folders or fewer, make sure that they are action-based. Try to make them very different from each other. Let's talk about some ideas for custom folders that you could use. All right. So here are a couple of different ideas. Let me see. So one of them could be to call. Now, only create these if you have enough papers that would go into each, that it would make sense. Because if you're only going to put a couple things in there, then you're just going to make it more difficult for no reason. But to call is one option if you have a lot of phone calls to make. To call. To follow up. So if there are often papers that you've done your part and you just need to follow up on them, that could include confirmations for shipping. Did it come through? Then to follow up can be helpful. Got kids? To mom can be really helpful, because that way anything they bring in that you have to sign off on or see, they can just pop it right in that folder. To pay. Now, if it makes you nervous to put bills or things to pay in your to-do folder, it is, pardon me, it is okay to create a separate folder called to pay. So you have it separated. You don't want to stress out your brain about payments. But then you have two folders to check, to do and to pay. All right. To research. If it's something you just want to look into more, but you don't want to clutter up your to-do folder with it, to research is a really good one. So if you want to Google it, make some phone calls, find some different things, it's more than just reading through it, right? To shred, if you don't have your action file near a shredder, then to shred can be really helpful. And to try. This is really good if you have recipes or craft patterns, things like that you just want to try out that you save, then to try can be a really good one to keep them separated from your regular to-dos. All right. So those are some ideas for those custom folders. Now, like Lori asked, which folder would you put papers from new health insurance that you need to read and will need to do various actions? So when you are trying to decide which folder something goes into, think, what is my next action that I need to do? Is the next action to read it? Can you not take any of the other actions until you've read through it? In that case, it would go into read. Are there other actions that you can take before reading through it? If so, it would go into maybe to do, or if one of the other actions would be to enter it or to scan it, it would go in that appropriate folder. So is to read the next action that you have to do in order to do any other actions? If so, it would go into read. Could you do any other actions first before reading through it? Are there other ones that you know that have to be done? Then it would go in that appropriate folder, if that makes sense. But yeah, like Lovely Marie said, great question, Lori. Yes, it was definitely a good question. So I love that. Thank you. All right, so hopefully you have an idea of what the action file is and what the different folder names are and how to use it. So we'll recap in just a couple minutes. I'll go through the recap for you super fast. But really quickly, think about and tell me in the comments, do you know anybody who could use an action file who might be interested? And if so, after you comment, make sure to share this challenge with them. It's free, right? So share this video, share the challenge link to join the challenge. I would love to have them join us as well. So to join the challenge, SuzannaKaye.live/join-the-challenge. It's also in the video description. And if you go to my website, there's also a link right there and in the shop to join the challenge. And tomorrow, before we recap, I want to let you know tomorrow's live, we are talking about the various spaces in your home that you can place your action file. So where you put your action file will make a big difference in how successful you are with it. So talk about placing your action file tomorrow. We will also talk about where does the action file fit within a full paper system? So how does it flow out of the system? What are the different parts of the system? So that way you can understand this is one part of your bigger picture, how do you make it work really well to get things into the right folders and archives and save things correctly? And I will share examples of different paper types and how to file them. So like Lori's question, where she asked about insurance, insurance paperwork, I will share a couple of different examples with you and how to file them. Plus, tomorrow, while we're at it, I am going to, only for those who are signed up by email, you will get these free cheat sheet labels for your action file. So you can give yourself some little cheat sheets either on the front of your folders or right inside your folders for those times that you're not sure where a paper will go. It gives you some good examples on how to decide. So that download will be shared with you by email tomorrow if you are registered. So make sure to register. All right. So are you ready for the recap? Yes? Awesome. Okay, so recap. The action file. What is an action file? An action file is for your mail, incoming papers, and active papers, right? Mail, incoming papers, and active papers. Active papers being something that needs to be done with them before they're just filed. Now, it is temporary storage for papers. A paper can bounce between folders. It can start in one, and once that action is done, it can move to another. Only one of those folders do you ever really have to check, though, that to-do folder. That to-do folder is the only one that you need to make a habit to check, and on Wednesday, we will talk about how to set up that habit. Once all of the actions are done with your paper, then it either goes into your filing system, so it can be saved forever, your archive files, or it gets discarded, whether it's shred, recycle, trash. But until all the actions are done, it stays in the action file. Once all of the actions are done, then it leaves the action file and it flows directly into your paper path system or whatever filing system you have. If you've already got a filing system that's working, great. It can flow right into that file cabinet or whatever your next step is. If you don't, that's fine. I will also tell you about the paper path system and what parts of a paper system there are and how it flows. But it flows directly into your paper system. Now, how do the folders work and what are the folders? The core folders that you should probably start with most of these, if not all, to enter. So things where you just have to enter information somewhere else. That's all that really needs to be done with that paper. To read, you just need to read through, right? There's nothing else that you know that you need to do right now. You might come up with other things after you read it, but your first step is to read. To scan, if you scan your papers before filing them, then once your actions are done, you'll probably be putting it into scan before you put it in to file. So once it's scanned, or once all the actions are done, if you don't scan, it can go into file if you need to keep that paper. If you don't, then it can be discarded. If you do, then it can go into file, and then you can file things all at once, so it reduces runs to that filing cabinet. And then there's the ultimate to-do, and to-do just means that it's not any of the actions that you already have available on the other folders. So if it does not fit in any of those, then it goes into do. And that's the one that I will tell you how to check it, how to keep it in sight so you don't forget all that good stuff. And then there's custom folders, all right? So when you're customizing your folders, remember, 10 folders or fewer, make them action-based. They should be able to start with the word to and still make sense. And try not to make them too similar to what's already there. So some of the examples would be, there is to call, to follow up, something that needs to go to mom, to pay, to research, to shred, to try. So you see how they can all start with the word to. They're all a separate action that's very different. And that's what we want from our custom folders. All right. Well, hopefully you're enjoying this so far. What's your next step? Your next step is to grab your supplies in your inbox in today's email. I shared that supply link. It's also in the video description here. So if you have your supplies, if you want to see what supplies I use, then you can go to the shop link and share and check those out. And I think I have a image, but I don't know where I put it. Let me see. I wanted to show you where it is, but yep, I put it somewhere weird. All right. So you can go to the shop page And you can find out which supplies I like to use there. I think this might be what I was going to show you. It is. Okay. So, but the supplies are easy. You need a file holder, a small file holder, because remember, we've only got 10 or fewer folders in there, right? And some file holders. Depending on your file holder, it might be hanging files, it might be the flat files. I tend to like the hanging files better. Then you can throw in some optional supplies if you like to as well. In the front folder of mine, I usually have a few extra supplies, such as a checkbook, pens, highlighters, pencils, post-it notes, either a stapler or binder clips, stamps, things like that. So just a few supplies that you can throw right in the front of your action file. I like to use those little bags that you get for free a lot of times from various makeup purchases and stuff. And then there are some other custom additional ideas that I share within the Paper Path course with you as well that can just take your action file to the next level. But whichever you choose, grab those supplies and put together your action file. That's your task for today. And share this video. So if you know anybody who would like to put together their own action file, share this with them, share the challenge with them so they can get tomorrow's free download as well. And keep on doing great work. If you've not already registered, register now so you don't miss anything. In the comments, I wanted to check this out and answer any questions here. Denise says, maybe you already said this, but what do you keep in the red folder? All incoming mail? There's not necessarily a red folder. That's completely up to you. But a lot of people do like to make their to-do folder red. So that's the one that stands out for them. So that would be anything that's not one of the other folder actions. And that's the one that you need to check more often. So a lot of times people will make the to-do folder red so it stands out from the others. But you don't have to. You can make it whatever color you want. I don't have a red folder in mine. I do have a pink folder. And that actually has some of the downloads that I have to make paper management easier for some of the Paper Path course students, enrollees. So that's what I have there. I use my action file to show them some of the downloads and how we use some of those extra checklists and tracking pages. But make it your own. And if you wanted to go super in depth with it, then SuzannaKaye.com. I do have the Paper Path course there. And right now there's actually a bonus, a welcome party live session. And I believe another bonus is available right now when you grab the Paper Path course. So if you're considering it, now's the time. Diane says, I need a folder for my husband. Yes. Yes. If there's somebody else in the household that gets a lot of the papers as well, that's really helpful. You're so welcome, Brenda. Yeah, honeydew, right? Karen says honeydew, right, Diane? Yes, and Lovely Marie says for her, she uses her red folder for medical records or information. Absolutely. So you could do a medical folder, or you could do the emergency medical folder, which is the one quick grab that I've talked about in other times. Yeah. Karen says, I also use a red plastic binder that snaps closed for medical that needs to travel with me. Protects it from the rain too. Absolutely. Yep. We use the emergency medical folder for that. And it's nice to have both of those. So that way you're covered for everything. The incoming papers, the emergency medical stuff. Love it. Melody uses an opaque lucite box with Pentaflex folders. She says for her, she uses red for medical, yellow for insurance, etc. She has 11 folders. And Diane says, you got it, Karen. Karen laughed. So Lori says, after reading the insurance document, the next actions have different types of actions needed. So how do you decide which folder to move it to call, to enter, to pay, to file, if it all needs to be done? So what I would do at that point is, what is the next most important action that you would do? You would probably either to call or to pay. Sounds like those are probably like the next logical one in the sequence that you would do. So I would probably put it in my to-do folder, because to call and to pay, I don't have a folder for those. They're all in the to-do. So if I put it in the to-do folder, then I can both call it and pay it while it's in that folder. And then usually we don't enter the information somewhere else until we've done all of the most important actions on it. So once you've called and you've paid and there's no other important actions, then that's when I'd probably put it into enter so I can just enter the information wherever it needs to go. And once I've done that, to file. So it's kind of an order of priority. What would you do next? What's the most important thing to do next? Or what would be the most urgent thing to do so that you don't forget to do it? And I would go in that order. Good one. Lovely Marie says, I'm also trying to go paperless. So once the information is placed into the proper place, then is it okay to shred? Yes. Yes, 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 absolutely. She says, like if I do auto pay, but still getting the paper for now. Absolutely. I like to store things paperlessly as much as I can as well. So once I've done all of my actions, it's bounced around in the folder as many times as it needs to, and all the actions are done, then for me, a lot of times it's to scan it and then to shred or recycle, depending on the paper. Good one. Oh, yeah. Lori says, instead of to mom, I could use to pass on. That's a good one. Yes, I love that one. So it just means it goes to someone else. You don't have to say who. Oh, good. Karen says, so true. Lovely Marie. She says, I use Trello too. I like Trello. Karen says, thanks, Susanna. I'm going to order your rose gold organizer with pretty marble folders. Oh, yay. Wonderful. I love that. Yes, my supply list has a link to that gold holder, which I do love. And it's lasted for a long time now. Melissa says, thank you so much. You're welcome. Kevin says, I have a folder for current grocery ads and coupons. Yes, right? And that could be in like a to buy folder or anything like that. It could even be that coupons is one of the few things that sometimes if you are a big couponer, it might not be an action, but having a folder for it is appropriate if you have a bunch of them. Good. Denise says, my computer screen shows your pink folder as red. That makes sense. Yeah, the computer screen, sometimes the colors do their own things, right? Lori says, thanks for the answer because I have a to pay and to communicate folder. So perhaps I need to remove those and just use the to-do folder for these actions. Yeah, I would, because if you can put all the random actions into your to-do folder, it makes it much easier. When you start to get too many different action folders, then your brain just has to work much harder. As you see, right? You're like, well, which folder does it go in? And that's because you've got so many. So unless you have, a reason to have so many papers that go with to pay or to communicate where it would overwhelm your to-do folder, usually I just say, stick it in your to-do. Kathy asks, where do my scans go? There are a number of different places that you can store your digital papers, the scanned papers, and it all depends on personal preference, what you're comfortable with. So the way I do it might not be your way, but I'm glad to tell you, I like to store most of my scanned papers in Google Drive, just because I use so many of the different Google things. It's just very easy for me to use with all the different things in Google. So I love using it with Google Drive. If it has a lot of personal information, like I would not store a scan of my social security card in Google Drive. For that, I actually would use something like LastPass, which is a password management software. And they have a limited amount of storage available for scanned paperwork. And anything that has a whole lot of personal information for me, I still want to be able to access it if I'm out of the country or something like that. So, but it's got a high level security. If you don't need to access it on the road, then just stick with like an external hard drive or external flash drive that you can unplug. That's another way. So that's just me. There are a number of really good online storage programs that are similar to Google Drive, and there are a number of really good password programs that are similar to LastPass. Those are just the ones that I like and use. Oh, you're so welcome, Kimberly. She says, thank you for your services. Lori says, you're helping me to be less detailed, right? It sounds counterproductive, doesn't it? To be less detailed, to be organized. But when you are so detailed, it actually makes things a lot harder. So yeah, detail's good, but stepping it back a little bit is usually a really good idea when you've got a little too much detail. So I'm so glad that I'm helping you to be a little bit less detailed. Yay, Lori. Karen loves LastPass. Yes, right? Oh, Lovely Marie says, I never thought about Google Drive for scanning. Absolutely. Yeah. And I believe in my webinar for Lovely Marie, if you wanted, and also for Kathy, if you wanted to learn more about how I organize, the top view of how I organize my emails and my digital files, in my shop at SuzannaKaye.com with those webinars. I have a webinar called, I believe it's called Organizing Email and Digital Files. And I go into what programs I like, how I let things flow into it and structure it. But I also go into a bit about the safety and, what is cloud storage? How can you be safe? Which types of papers would you put in cloud storage versus in a separate offline or highly protected storage area? So you might want to check out that webinar if that's something that you're interested in, just so you can make sure that you are also being safe. Because whenever we do something digital, we want to make sure that we know exactly how it could be accessed, what should be considered as you do it. I'm not trying to scare you off because it's fantastic to do. But go to SuzannaKaye.com and stop by the shop. You can find about the Paper Path course if you want to. I know, lovely Marie, you already have the Paper Path course and you're working on it and doing great stuff. But you can also find that webinar, Organizing Your Emails and Digital Files, or something like that, I think it's called. So Vicky says, less detailed. I needed to hear that, right? Yeah, less detailed is actually better a lot of times. Lovely Marie says that. Yes, that would be a great help and even easier for me. I'll check it out after this. Fantastic. Well, great job today, beautiful. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow for day 2 of the 3-day challenge. If you're not already registered, make sure to register. If you're enjoying this, make sure to share this with a friend, like it in YouTube or Facebook. Yeah, do all the things. Subscribe to my channel so you don't miss my other lives as well. But I will see you tomorrow. And if you've not checked out your inbox, check it out now because your task is sitting in there if you're registered. Bye, beautiful. Keep being amazing. And I love you. You've got this. Bye now.